Today we're speaking with Rick Sheridan. Rick is a professor of communication at Wilberforce University in Ohio, and he's recently written a book called Social Media in the Classroom. In his book, he's given us lots of tips on how to use this wonderful, timely tool. Hi, Rick. Rick, because you're brand new to the Illuminations Media Network, please share a bit about your background and what led to this passion.
Well, I've been a college professor for about 18 years now, and I've actually used social media in the classroom really for probably 10 out of the 18 years. So last summer, I had 3 months, in between semesters, and I started to shop around for a publisher, typed up a proposal, and I was able to find a reputable publisher that wanted to move forward with the book, and so far they've done a wonderful job of, helping to keep me on task. So I had all these notes that I've collected over the years, and I just tried to reconfigure them into a book format.
Why and how is social media used in the classroom?
Well, a good way to look at it, it's happening regardless of whether the teacher or professor knows about it. These days, I guess that probably at least 75 or 80% of my students have the smart telephones, and so while the lecture's going on or while the students are working on individual projects, they're also checking their Facebook status, and they might be tweeting, and they're texting back and forth. And so the reality is that, like I say, the social media stuff is already happening, and it's very much worth the teacher's while to try to harness some of this excitement and enthusiasm.
Right. We might as well reach those students right where they are, right?
Exactly.
Well, there's certainly a lot of controversy around this. We can look back at the Spannerman versus Hughes issue back in 2008, where the teacher was actually fired for inappropriate behavior on his MySpace page. He was actually using it to interact with his students. What are your views on that, and how have things changed since then?
Well, my policy personally, I don't friend students on Facebook. Now, LinkedIn is really a different perspective. It's much more of a serious kind of business network. We actually use LinkedIn to create our portfolios, and a lot of times students will friend me. I don't reject them, but I don't encourage them to friend me. But like I say, the Facebook is kind of off limits because I know there's supposed to be some demarcation line.
Certainly. And how about privacy? There's a lot going on about privacy and secrecy, safety. We have Snowden. How do we handle that?
There's a number of things you can do. One of the first would be to have a stronger password. You might want to combine like letters and numbers. In fact, these days, a lot of sites that you might sign up for, they will insist that you use a combination of like upper and lowercase letters, maybe the @ symbol, along with the numbers. So what you want to do is avoid, like, say, using your last name as a password, or if you're an avid golfer, use the word golf. Now, there's a variety of other things you can do. Is delete any out-of-date accounts. I've had that situation where I discovered that maybe some email that I'd started and kind of forgot about is still floating around out there. And if you can just go ahead and cancel it, that's pretty helpful.
And how so? By getting rid of those old, outdated accounts that you might have, how's that going to help?
I think it's going to make a difference as far as if people perceive that you're out there. I think everybody's got a presence online, but if you have a lot of fragmented material, it might attract some of the problematic, like everybody had heard of there's the Nigerian scam that happened a few years ago, where I actually met a guy at a party who had fallen for that. I don't know if you want me to get into that now, but
it was
pretty sick. I think he lost thousands of dollars. But what they do is they send emails that you've already won a prize, but you've got to put up your bank account information in order to collect the prize. And some are pretty sophisticated. My understanding is this guy wouldn't reveal how much he'd lost. I mean, it was in the thousands of dollars. But what he said was that he'd replied to this email, and he'd called a toll-free telephone number, and they'd had an operator who kind of talked him through. And so it sounded very believable. It was like some prince in Nigeria had stashed away this money somewhere and needed an American to kind of to rescue it. So maybe one of the main tips would be, if it's too good to be true, it probably is.
Wow, that's pretty scary.
Yeah, I get that stuff occasionally. Now, Gmail does a pretty good job of filtering the spam. They can tell if it's an email that's sent to 10,000 people, it's going to pretty much automatically end up in the spam pile. But occasionally they will slip through. Now, what's really bad, really insidious, sometimes people get their emails hijacked. I guess this would be one reason to cancel any old accounts. The problem is that, so what would happen, I would receive an email and it would look like a friend or acquaintance, and unbeknownst to them, there's various advertising that's, being sent out in their name. So one of the nicest things you can do, if you ever receive any of that, you want to contact your friend who, is being listed as the person sending the email. Often all they have to do is go in and change their password.
Interesting. So there's a lot of hijacking going on, and people are really taking advantage of folks. So some great practical information in your book about how to protect your safety and your privacy. That's excellent. That's super important. Now, if we go back to the classroom, you mentioned that you use LinkedIn, and how would you use that for a lesson plan?
Well, we actually use it for a portfolio. Now, just to give you a quick summary, one of the courses I teach is communication graphics, and we do a lot of Photoshop and Microsoft Publisher. We create, brochures, newsletters. So what the students can do is actually post that on the LinkedIn account, and I try to get them to fill in some of the details, like they want to post their resume. There's also an opportunity. There's hundreds of different groups that you can join on LinkedIn. I think I belong to about 37. Most of them are academic. Now, some are, like, say, alumni associations from the college I went to, and there's some that are just recreational, sports-related. But you can find some serious stuff. Like, let's say I've got a student who's an engineering major. There's literally dozens of engineering-related sites. So what I'm trying to do is get my students kind of career-ready, and I encourage them to collect letters of recommendation. But they can use LinkedIn to build up a professional network. Now, at this point, I've got something like 537 contacts on LinkedIn, and it keeps reminding me that with the 537, that gives me, there's something like 1 million people that are in my network, friends of friends, like, let's say 3 levels deep. And so that's probably all the job contacts I'll ever need for one lifetime.
Right, I would think so. So this is beautiful. So this is preparing students for the future, and they're actually creating contacts that they're definitely going to need. That's awesome. Very good. Now, one thing I've noticed about social media is that people will become more outgoing and more expressive actually online when they can kind of hide behind their computer. Do you find that even shy students will participate more?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. Now, it's not 100% of the time, but I would guess the vast majority of the time, the type of shy student who would not participate in a classroom discussion, they are often one of the most active social media participants. They kind of come out of their shell, so to speak. They're able and willing to communicate ideas that they might be a little shy about, saying in front of everybody.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, this younger generation, it seems that they come out of the womb texting with both thumbs, so everybody is pretty connected with social media. I think it's great. You know, a lot of people will complain that we're losing our connectivity with one another, but I don't know. I beg to differ. For me, it seems that we're actually communicating more and sharing more. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you're pretty accurate. Now, just to give you an idea, my personal Facebook account, I literally had maybe one or two friends or contacts on there, and I went to a reunion about 5 years ago. I was one of the college radio DJs here at the University of Kansas, and there's about 40 or 50 people I knew that, you know, they'd since most of them had moved on to like other parts of the U.S. or even overseas. Well, what happened was I was talking to one person there about Facebook and how I was about ready to just, you know, close my account, and she said, "Oh, don't do that." And so I got home and she'd friended me, and within like a day or two, I probably had 50 or 60 requests from a lot of these people that I knew like many years before. And so I think the point I'm trying to make is that without Facebook, there's literally no way I could have kept up with even half of them.
You know, that's so very true. I've done the same. I've been able to connect with people from grade school. And as an Army brat, I've lived all over the world. So it's great, and I love it. And just like any tool, we do have to be smart about how we use it. You know, there's certainly things that I don't share, you know, publicly on the Internet. And
yeah, of course. Well, you know, I've read, I don't know how accurate it is, but I've heard that they've actually got like a 12-step program, the same as what was made famous by Alcoholics Anonymous. It's mainly for people that are on chat too much, I think.
Yeah, I've heard about that, and people who actually, you know, text and post to Facebook in their sleep.
See, there's definitely a few of my Facebook contacts that they're probably on about, I don't know, I guess at least 12 hours a day.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of time. Now, you mentioned dashboards. What are dashboards, and do you recommend them?
You know, the only one that I've really experimented with, it's called Hootsuite, and it allows you to combine about 3 of these social media tools. I think I have LinkedIn, Twitter, and like Facebook, and so it's basically all visible. You can monitor all 3 at the same time. So it's kind of like live action where you're watching. You can see if there's new posts, or you know, you can also contribute if you wanted to post a message for somebody else. So it basically economizes the screen use. Now, I don't know. I just kind of naturally gravitated away from it for whatever reason. You know, I felt like maybe it was a little too distracting, or there's too much going on at once. But I could see for somebody who's really, really busy, maybe somebody working on Wall Street and they needed to monitor, you know, they have all these different like stock investment sites.
Very interesting. I think that could be an excellent tool to use. But again, for me, like you, I think I might get a little bit distracted. And so, yeah, we want to use these tools, but with caution. And you talk about the Google search engine, and there's so many features. Can you go into some of them, some that you do recommend?
Yeah, you know, the Google Docs is a wonderful free service. You can collaborate. Like, give you a quick example. I've got 2 friends who are also interested in getting their doctorates, and so the 3 of us set up a Google Doc account, and every time we'd find out about a different opportunity or different university, we could post the information. All 3 of us could see it, and then each individual person could go in and comment. They can also make changes. Now, those changes are kept track of, so if the original person, you know, wanted to go back, they could easily revert. Now, there's Google Alerts, and that's mainly for if you're trying to research a unique or unusual topic. Like one of the things I'm personally interested in, it's called Ethnography. It's similar to what you think of as ethnography, where you'd go and hang out with the people you're trying to research, But autoethnography, it's almost like free verse, where you speak freely. In other words, you keep a diary, and if you have a hunch that something is not quite right. See, now in traditional academic research, you're really not supposed to do that. You're supposed to wait and, maybe do a statistical analysis or some other tool. The researcher is not supposed to jump in. But with autoethnography, anyway, to make a long story short, the Google Alerts would let me know anytime there's an article out there anywhere that's posted on the web, I would get an alert.
Oh, that's really very cool.
There's a variety of other, like GPS features, quite a bit of stuff on Google that I haven't really explored that much.
Interesting. And I imagine you can keep up with people as well.
Yeah, they say that if you're trying to get a high search engine ranking, that Google Plus is really a way to go. It's similar to Facebook. I try to stay active. I don't go in there anywhere near as much, maybe a couple times a month or something. But apparently, if you're trying to get your name out there, the Google Plus is really a way to do it. Or for the social media, like if you had a classroom project and you really wanted the world to find out about it. Now with Facebook, a lot of people lock that down. They're very concerned about privacy. And I think you can do that with Google Plus, but I guess to understand it better, it feeds more directly into the Google search engine.
Oh, that's great. I actually use Google Plus quite a bit, and I do enjoy the privacy because you, of course, put people in circles, and you only share information with the circle that you choose, so everyone isn't privy to it. So I do really, really enjoy that. Earlier in our conversation, you spoke about students developing online portfolios. Can you explain more about these portfolios and what the advantages to using these are?
Yeah, the original portfolio part, I used to just ask them to round up all their projects, and they'd put them onto one or two pages, like smaller versions of the image that they created, and then they would print it out in color and turn that in. Well, I figured it'd be so much better to be able to share that with the world, or at the very least to share it with friends and family. So we started out pretty simple, where they would just sign up for a LinkedIn account, and then they would add these images that we created in class. But I figured since a lot of them are juniors and seniors, they're going to be out job hunting really quickly, I highly encourage them to fill in the rest of their profile. You can add, there's a variety of tools for like putting a resume on there. You can add testimonials. You can either ask somebody to write you a letter of recommendation, or sometimes they'll actually come forward and just do it. Now, the main thing I think with LinkedIn is you can network with all these professional organizations, so you're able to kind of keep up with what's going on. And now, one of the advantages, anybody who belongs to the same group that you belong to on LinkedIn, you're able to friend them with their permission, of course. Now, as your listeners may know, with LinkedIn, it's a little bit more selective. You're not able to just kind of reach out and try to friend anybody like you can on Facebook. You're supposed to have like a business connection, or maybe you went to the same school together. So one of the legitimate ways around that, if you join a group and it's got some key individuals like from your field that you'd want to get to know better or reach out to. In fact, I was just looking on LinkedIn the other day. I always enjoy kind of browsing the possible matches. I found a guy that I found at the University of Kansas with. Now he is some top investigative reporter for Gannett, I think on the East Coast. And so I sent him a basic message.
Interesting. Well, there's so much to talk about in this world of social media and blending it with education. And we're talking about social media and education. Rick has actually written a book about using social media in the classroom. Rick Sheridan, before we left off with that little break, we were speaking about students building those portfolios and actually looking for jobs, as they move closer to graduation. So we know that a lot of the human resources departments will actually use LinkedIn and some other social media platforms to look for candidates. How can students make sure that they keep their other private stuff separate? What would you recommend they do? You know, because we can look at some horror stories that have shown up where someone may have had an image of themselves on Facebook or on some other platform that was what was less than professional, and then the HR company sees that, and then they lose that opportunity. How can we protect ourselves from those things?
Probably the first thing would just be common sense. Like, don't put anything up that you wouldn't want to have stick around for a while. Now, that being said, you can also go to, there's a settings command that's pretty easy to navigate through. You go to edit your profile, and it's one of the options that are on there. But anyway, you can lock it down so that only your direct contacts can really see anything. And one of the options you have is you can make it so that nobody else can really tell who your friends or contacts are. I think I did that on LinkedIn, but I didn't bother to do it on Facebook because I kind of like it when my Facebook friends get to know each other.
Right.
But, yeah, the main thing, I think, both with LinkedIn and Facebook is you can shut it off so that it's not indexed by the search engines, so that if you had a wild, like, spring break photo or something, they wouldn't be able to, like, the bad guys wouldn't be able to find it.
Oh, well, that's really good to know. Awesome stuff. Yeah, that's a big concern because certainly we have separate lives, from our professional lives.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic. There's a state senator from Pennsylvania. He wrote a testimonial for my book, and he's actually worked on one himself where he goes over all of the mistakes. I mean, everybody's heard of Anthony Weiner, but there's plenty of other examples of these politicians that have basically ended their career. You hear about it pretty frequently on the media. Somebody will tweet like maybe a inappropriate joke, and quickly the news media will pick up on it. Yeah,
that's when you are in the public eye, you have to know that you basically don't have any privacy. But for someone who's seeking a job, we certainly wouldn't want our past, not even mistakes, but just maybe our past fun to be judged, and make us lose the opportunities.
Yeah, one of the problems, like my girlfriend actually had her boss request to be her friend, I think on LinkedIn and or Facebook, and that's where you kind of run into problems because then they can go in and really kind of monitor what you're up to. So part of that routine would be to have a diplomatic way. Now, I've heard what some people do is they'll actually have a couple of different Facebook or LinkedIn accounts, and they would have one for, family members, let's say, the kind of family members that you wouldn't want to share some of these details with, and you might want to put your boss on there too. And,
right.
And then you'd have the other Facebook account for the wilder crowd that you might hang out with.
Right. Now, are you using the LinkedIn as part of the curriculum? Are you evaluating the students on their social media experiences or how they're actually utilizing it?
Absolutely. Yeah, what I'm finding is, a lot of the students are already pretty savvy. Now, most of them didn't have LinkedIn accounts, but they quickly adapted and figured it out. For 4 out of my 5 classes, I require it, and it's worth 100 points. It's basically the same as a final exam is worth, but they have all semester to work on it, and I ask them to send in whatever they've done by midterm, and that way I can kind of work with the ones that haven't really gotten to it.
Very good. And so is this part of the in-classroom activity? Are you right there and everyone is on a computer and you're actually guiding through the process?
Yeah, we do some of that. Now, not all of my classrooms are what they call smart classrooms. Some I would have a live computer so I can display, what I've done. I can also ask for volunteers and show their projects. Now, one of my classes, the advanced journalism, it's a smart classroom, plus everybody's got a working computer. So in that case, we do kind of go over some of the steps together. And I try to make sure that office hours are available to do that. If any student wants to stop by, we can go over it.
Well, that's great. It's pretty surprising, but there are still some people out there who are not savvy with social media. And I just wonder, with all that you've done with social media, and I know you've explored a great deal about the tools here, what's the most unusual social media program that you've ever come across?
There's a website called searchenginecolossus.com. It's got over 300 different countries represented.
Wow.
And they have search engines every place from Sri Lanka to Jamaica to Turkey to France. And so it's quite fascinating to go in there. One of my classes, we actually evaluate the influence of the American presence. Like some countries, I think Jamaica, for example, their main search engine there is Yahoo. So you can imagine they would get a lot of kind of U.S. culture mixed in, where some of the countries have really developed like their own infrastructure. And so it's really a fun site to go to, and I think there's a lot of valuable information.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I love to see how other cultures utilize social media. It's when you get out there and you look at it, people come up with all kinds of different ideas that